Alrighty. Well, David, thank you for joining us here at Mysticon 2017. Have you been having a good con so far?
Yeah, so far.
Excellent.
I haven't had to talk to you yet, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, the sad thing is we talk enough. This is just kind of,
Yeah. Hi, Jerry.
Hi, David.
Hi.
All right. So what's interesting, for those of you who don't know, David actually, it's not an official fan club of him, but it is an official fan club of one of his universes. We have the Royal Manticorian Navy here. That's who escorted David. And David, what's it like having one of your universes basically form its own fan club?
It's cool. It's kind of nice. They're a little weird, but I like it. It's
all your fault.
It's actually very flattering to have that many people who feel that strongly about a literary, fictitious creation of yours, that it works well enough to that many people that they actually want to be involved in that universe.
And now they have, just so that everyone knows, they have your kind of blessing to exist.
They have my official blessing, and they are not my fan group. And I tell them that they are their own organization, and I am associated with it. But I am usually very, very careful to stay out of any administrative suggestions or anything like that, for a lot of reasons, including the fact that they cared enough to organize themselves, and they do not need me swooping in and saying, well, since you like my books so much, y'all really ought to do whatever I tell you to do. My characters in my books do, you know. It's a really interesting relationship. It's kind of like having acquired a whole bunch of cousins that you didn't know you had, which happens in Southern families from time to time. But in Southern families, it's like, well, it was my Aunt Lucille's second boy's third wife's cousin's nephew. Oh, well, we're family. I mean, that's the way it works.
I was going to say, is there anybody that's not from down south in here? Okay, so we got a couple. All right. So.
Okay. Yeah, it works that way. It works that way. Some really, really remarkable people Sharon and I have met because they joined the TRMN.
I was going to say, I actually met you because of the TRMN.
And then there's Jerry.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you. Walk right into that.
I know. I got to give you an easy line every now and again.
Well, okay. A couple of years ago, my pulse bottomed, and it bottomed at 35 beats a minute. At which point you're basically unconscious. It drops below 40, you're basically unconscious. And we happened to have two friends who we had met through the TRMN, Angie and Phil Clayton, who are both EMTs with Anderson County in Greenville, in South Carolina, who were visiting at the house that day, and who ratted me right out to the doctor and had my butt hauled off to the hospital. And this was like 4 days before we were supposed to leave on a 2-week trip to HonorCon and Canada,
I remember getting that phone call from Sharon going, just so you know, he's alive, but...
But, I mean, and that was just one of those little serendipitous things that happens, But yeah, the fan club has been great.
If you had a choice, I mean, obviously not that you don't love the TRMN. If you had a choice, what other one of your universes of the I think 11 that you have would you love to see a fan club be created out of?
I think maybe the Safe Hope books.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is, although it's a single planet, I think it may be the most fully developed literary universe that I've got. But I mean, the Norfressa would be really cool for fantasy fantasy people.
I can see tartans and swords.
Yeah, well, I always wanted to see the Queen's own Royal Redani Highlanders. You know,
That
horse
would be
stealers
awesome.
in kilts. And, you know, here they are, they're getting ready to go to battle. It says, "All right, lads, fix bayonets, give yourselves to the wage," you know, and you go down the hill, you know, kind of thing. I just have this line that I got to figure out where to use. And I actually think I know where I'm going to put it, and it will be
awesome.
in the book. Just, you know, it just won't be with the Scottish accent.
For those of you who are wondering, that would be the Oath of Swords, the Sword of the South series.
Yeah.
So if you haven't
So
read
it'll
it
be
yet,
with the southern drawl.
Well, yeah, no, actually, no, that'd be, no. No, actually, I have one where General Sherman wins the war for the Confederacy that I haven't written yet. It's because his wife dies, and his father, who is the senator from Ohio who got him his commission when that, blames him for his wife's death. And he remarries one of the wife of the sister of one of his classmates from West Point, who is a Southern girl. And I don't know how many of you realize that Sherman was offered a general's commission in the Confederate Army back when he was the president of what became LSU, and he turned it down. So in my universe, it's like he turns it down and he goes to Washington and he tries to get in, and his father-in-law, who's now in Lincoln's cabinet, is like, "Ha, cold day in hell." And his wife says to him, "Billy, these people are not worthy of you. You have attempted to do what you believed was your duty, and they have rejected you. Come home where people love you." You know, and he was right. You know, kind of thing. So someday I need to write that one. I have the interesting problem of having way too many things to write in the amount of time I've got. But
you've actually come up with a way that I think is fascinating for getting around the whole writing and time issue, and that's the way you use voice software to do your writing.
Well, that helps, but I can still only manage 2 or 3 novels a year. To get
only 2 or 3 novels.
Everything I wrote, so I want to write written, I'd have to be doing about 5.
So that's why you suck in Ringo and Flint, and Presby, and
yeah, well, Joel for Road to Hell. How many of you have read the Road to Hell? Okay.
I bought it the day it came available.
That was fun. It also took a lot longer than I expected it to, because it was the first novel for Joel, and I'd allowed for that. But what I hadn't allowed for was the fact that after like 10 years away from the multiverse, I had to go back and research it myself to figure out, because you got 2 identical planets with different place names for every place on the surface of the planet. The people you're telling the story to live on a 3rd iteration of it. So the index that Joelle and I are working from is really interesting because it's a 3-entry index for every geographical feature.
That's the only way you can.
Yeah, but I had to go back and
straight.
find them. Okay.
Computers are wonderful if you properly manage.
Well,
your
what's
database.
interesting, and actually this is a good way to seek into this, for talking about research, you've actually got, at least for one of your universes, kind of a research help team.
Aha, yeah. Tom, what was the range we gave on that? He's talking about Bu9, which is fantastic. It's a bunch of guys who came together. Yeah. Actually, the initial group grew out of Ken Burnside's work on the Saganami Island Tactical Simulator tabletop game. And then they kind of got, Tom Pope and I became close personal friends. They have sort of, it's like a coral reef building around the skeleton of the Honorverse in a lot of ways where Bu9 is concerned. And they bring all kinds of different knowledge to it, like ex-nuclear engineering officers on Los Angeles class submarines, and guys who were into crypto and communications for the Navy, Air Force pilots, tankers, a guy who was a lecturer at the Naval War College. I mean, this is the kind of guy who was a lawyer for like 30 years, specializing in constitutional law. It's really an interesting database, which is primarily useful to me for the Honorverse, but I can also call on them for other information sources when I need it. Which is I doubt that it's unique in that nobody else has a group that does the same kind of stuff. But this particular team and its strengths, I think, very well may be unique, especially since they are all, from my perspective, volunteer. Now, I did tell them that they needed to incorporate, so that when we did the House of Steel companion, we're doing 2 more. They do get paid for their work on that, although not exactly princely salaries when you split it up among the number of people who are involved. But Bu9 is, we try to have a meeting. The original Honor Con was Bu9 and Sharon and me getting together once a year. Okay.
If you haven't met Sharon, definitely say hi to her. If you see her around the con, she is an absolute trip.
Oh yeah, yes, I agree entirely. But we were sitting around the kitchen table, the dining room table, eating spaghetti with folks from Bu9, talking about House of Steel, when the novella, I Will Build My House of Steel, came into existence. Because it was a story I'd wanted to tell. I'd been planning on doing an entire novel about King Roger.
Go Wolverines.
And it occurred to me that we needed a piece of original fiction in the companion, because the guys who are really into the Honorverse, like all the nuts and bolts and whatnot, they're going to go out and buy this because it's got the nuts and bolts in it. But for the folks who just read the books and really like them and they like the characters, but all the detailed background isn't as important, the book wouldn't have spoken to them the same way. So I gave them what amounted to actually a short novel in the front about King Roger and his contribution. And see, I had always known what Roger had done and how pivotal he was to the survival of the Honorverse, but there'd never really been a good place to do that in one of the other novels. He needed a book of his own to do it in, so that gave me the opportunity to do that. But it's like, I was like, oh yeah, and I wrote the correspondence for the in the Naval Institute proceedings. Okay, I wrote that and the last scene sitting at the table that evening, and then just did the rest of the story in between later.
Speaking of the Sharon.
Hi, dear.
Hi.
Hey, Sharon.
Okay, how much of Roanoke did you burn down?
I didn't burn it, I bought it.
So much better.
Would you like?
I have to sit up here now.
I was gonna say, would you like to sit up here?
I don't think
No,
she
no,
can
no,
put that
not
in
that
this
way,
chair.
not